Ladies and gents, welcome to CG Reaction, and this is What If You Lived in the Most Crowded Place on Earth by the channel RealLifeLore. Yeah, I think, I saw that video from, what if everybody lived in just one city, where he talked about lots of, like in India, Dharavi, there's a Kualu City or something. I think that's what he's going to talk about, seeing the thumbnail. So, first of all, I don't have, is it claustrophobia? I think that's the name, isn't it? Living in small spaces. I don't have that, but still, there's certain amount of space I need. If I'm too, I don't know how to say this. If I'm too crowded, like, way too small rooms, way too low roof. I don't know, not much window, not much of light. If there are certain codes are not, some housing codes are not honored, and it's just random, just no windows, just small walls, small roof. It's just nah. I can't stay there. Even though I'm not claustrophobic, I can't stay there. So this Dharavi, there is that in Mumbai, the Kualu City or something like that. I think in China, that's something. If I have to live there, I'd rather live on the road than live there. I can't just do that. So yeah, but real life lore is gonna go deep into this. I guess it's gonna be fun. I wrote quite a few real life lore videos already. If you haven't seen them, check out the card. There's a playlist uploaded for it. Check out other playlists too, like CG Big Ray, Internet Historian, TSU, Kuzgazar, things like that. And yeah, this is a real life lore video. It might get blocked, so I have to put checkered box there, but I guess we'll see. Let's watch this one.
This video was made possible by Skillshare. Get unlimited access to over 25,000 classes for free for 2 months by signing up at skl.sh/reallifelore26. The odds are that if you're watching this video, you're probably doing it alone or in a pretty small group of friends. You're probably watching this with a reasonable amount of privacy around you, but what if you were suddenly teleported to the least private and the most crowded place in the world and were forced to live there? What would your day-to-day life end up being like? Currently, the most dense concentration of people you can find anywhere in the world is here in Mumbai in the Dharavi slums. 700,000 people live here, packed together into just 2 square kilometers, which would be like shoving the entire population of Alaska down into just 2 city blocks. Life in Dharavi is harsh, but it's not the most crowded settlement in human history, and therefore it's not where you're getting teleported to. As recently as 1993, the title of the most crowded place on Earth belonged to a tiny-sized settlement in Hong Kong known as the Kowloon Walled City. With
Dharavi slums, like it's basically sheds and things like that. People just out of necessity build it. This is actual structures. Look at that. It's tall. How tall building is? 10, 15 story buildings. Who built these buildings like this? Touching each other and cramming up like this. Whoever thought like let's build buildings, but screw the code, let's just build building as densely as we can to get the most profit or something.
With nicknames like the City of Anarchy and the City of Darkness, you know that it's about to get pretty wild, but before we get too crazy here, you need to first understand this. The population density in New York City is only 10,431 people per square kilometer. The density of people in Dharavi is more like 277,000 people per square kilometer, over 26 times more dense than New York. Kowloon Walled City, on the other hand, was more like 1.9 million people per square kilometer, 182 times as densely packed together than even New York. The city occupied a space of only 6.5 acres, or roughly the same as 4 football fields, but was home to as many as 50,000 people living there. To put it in another way, imagine that you live in a comfortable 1,200 square foot home all by yourself. But then you shove 9 more people into that same home with you. Further, imagine that your home is merely one unit of a 14-story building, and every other unit in that building is just as full as yours. Then imagine hundreds of those buildings all crammed together into just those 4 football fields of space. In fact, if every single person in the world lived as closely together to one another as the people did in the walled city, the entire human species would be capable of living and working together in just Rhode Island. But what would it actually be like for you to live in such a horrifically crowded place?
Why this came to be? That's the first question. I mean, look at those. There's already buildings there. So what? These buildings came after. There was not much of structure there, so people just built around this area. Is that what happened?
Street level of the walled city was full of dentist and doctor offices without any official operating licenses. So you'd always have to just take your chances with a random person who was claiming to be a dentist anytime that you wanted to get your teeth checked. It could have been pretty good, or it could have been some rando off the street who decided 2 hours ago that he was now a dentist. Restaurants routinely offered dog meat as a tempting alternative to normal food.
What the fuck, man? Wait a minute, is this one of those things like, more of a crime hub areas of the city, like where, lots of criminals live, so, there is no health code, no nothing, more like Wild West type of area of the city where cops don't go much because, everybody's criminal, it's just, that kind of thing. Is this like that? Because this is just effed up. It's not that they are living in crime spaces, it's that, there is no health code, no nothing. People are giving dog foods, dentists don't have license, what the hell?
Food, all without any adherence to sanitation regulations. Dozens of alleyways on the ground inside the interior of the city connected each side and the living units deep in the dark interior that lacked any windows. These alleys were only between 3 and 6 feet wide, and you would have to carry an umbrella with you to shield yourself from the drippy water pipes and people throwing garbage out above you. The alleys were almost permanently dark since the unbelievably dense slums above blocked out most of the sunlight. The walled city was essentially the world's largest squatter camp without any official government services or even laws.
Man, that's just creepy to think about. Imagine 12 at afternoon, 12 noon. You walking below this, this buildings, and basically it's like, 8 p.m. or something. It's mostly dark, only a bit illuminated. That would be so weird and creepy. And first of all, isn't this like a maze? What if people get stuck here? Like, where am I supposed to go? Look at that. Oh, this is so ridiculous.
And it developed a nickname, the City of Anarchy, as the population began to skyrocket from a few hundred up to tens of thousands. Both the British and the Chinese governments grew reluctant to interfere with the weird situation and carried out a very hands-off approach with regards to the city. This is how random people could claim to be dentists, chefs served dogs in their cafes, and why nobody knew what to do with their garbage. So they either threw it out of their windows or hauled it up to the roof to be abandoned forever.
Yeah, this is everybody, and lots of people have this mentality like less federal government involvement, less government involvement. People don't realize that every time there is a government provides something, people scream socialism, like healthcare socialism, even though they are perfectly fine using the government built highways and roads. But they want as less as government as they can. Well, if there is no government involved, things like this happens. Total anarchy, Wild West type of things. And this is not good. People need to realize that yes, government involvement less is good. I mean, I just watched the video yesterday about how FBI apparently screwed over an entire family. So I understand that, less government involvement, that's good. But there is moderation everywhere. It should be in the middle. No government involvement would end up like this. So, but too much government involvement, it just, becomes more of a dictatorship type of scenario. People becomes power hungry, I guess. That video about, how FBI killed an innocent woman, did that reaction from Quickseer this yesterday. That was just after, that pissed me off, man. I've never watched any video like that.
Since the official government rarely intervened in whatever happened inside, the walled city became increasingly attractive to the people whose society frowned upon, like gangsters, pimps, drug dealers, sex workers, dog eaters, refugees, and apparently even some normal, albeit maybe crazy people who simply saw an opportunity. Further up into the dark layers of the city, you could easily find opium dens, heroin stands that operated as freely as convenience stores, and brothels that operated within impunity. The city was a dangerous place for police or probably anybody really to enter, so they only ever intervened with large groups and never alone. So if you ran into trouble inside and you call 911, the chances are that you'd probably not get an answer. On average, each person paid 35 Hong Kong dollars, or about $5 US per month for their rent for a 40 square foot room of space, which is...
Yeah, but this is in 1993. So, you know, yeah, at the time the money might have been more, I guess, I don't know.
About this size relative to an actual human for reference. Thousands of these little rooms existed side by side of each other, stretching up to 14 stories high. Around 5...
This is like literally living in jail with the small cells. This is effed up.
100 buildings were constructed inside of the city without a single licensed architect or engineer providing any kind of guidance whatsoever. Plumbing and sewage was almost non-existent, while tiny metal...
How do we know the structures are stable then? What if the buildings start to fall one after another? Half of the people from that, if not more, would be just, you know, buried inside all those rubbles. This is dangerous, man. Why didn't government involved in this? Like, you can't do this. Why did they leave them alone?
Fabrication shops made up a good percentage of the units between the ground and the 5th floors. While the metal shops provided some form of employment and income, they also added vastly to the horrible pollution problem found inside. While the street level inside of the city was always cast in darkness no matter the time of day or year, there was also a network of stairs and ramps that would enable you to traverse the city without ever having to set foot on the dark surface.
Wait a minute, look at this scene. Look at the wirings and things. How did this place catch fire? And if it did, how did they stop it with this densely packed? This is one of the most biggest fire hazard thing there can be. Look at that. This is ridiculous, isn't it? How this place didn't catch fire?
When zooming out to see the entire walled city, you can notice a courtyard in the center, which was the prime social gathering place and the only area on the street where the sun could reach. As mentioned previously, the roof on the city was always covered in garbage and was the prime dumping spot for residents. But it was also a pretty cool spot for you to go and check out planes that were almost crashing into everything. You see, the walled city was located only half a mile away from Kai Tak Airport, and planes landing there would routinely fly just over the city before landing, which contributed to enormous noise pollution. The camp was originally built out...
Come on, man. People living in those kind of conditions, no licensed practitioners there, all are just saying that I'm a dentist, people are feeding people dog food, all this criminal activity going on. Do you think people care about some noise from plane? But yeah, if the planes are going that close, goddamn, wouldn't the government be scared? Like, what if they build more structures and plane crashes? Why didn't they intervene?
Across the ancient walled city's borders on the street level. But as space ran out on the ground and more people were coming in all the time, they began building structure after structure on top of those old ones. The residents realized, though, that building higher than 14 stories could result in the airplanes that were landing over at Kai Tak to collide and kill all of them instead, so yeah, nobody ever built anything above that. Life inside was dark, dirty, cramped, loud, and often violent. But a lot of people seemed to actually enjoy it since it kept attracting more and more people over the years. Your life inside would be guaranteed to be radically different from the life you know now, because there isn't really any place on the earth that's quite like what the Kowloon walled city was like. Unfortunately, you no longer can visit unless you have a time machine, because the city was finally demolished by the Hong Kong government in 1994 after it became just too awesome for them to handle. All that we have left of the city today is a really lame park where it used to stand, but we thankfully have a lot of amazing photographs that people took of it back when it used to exist.
Wait a minute, all the people that were there didn't put out resistance, like you can't do this, this and that? I mean, it is China in the end. What resistance is going to help? Government is going to be like, I just said get the fuck out means get the fuck out.
these that give you some kind of sense of what it used to be like. However, there is a pretty wacky arcade in Japan called the Anata no Warehouse in Kawasaki that's created a faithful, multi-level recreation of part of the walled city, so that's probably your best chance of getting to experience what I just talked about in this video. If you end up going there, one of the first things that you'll probably want to do is take pictures, and luckily, there's a class on Skillshare for that. Professional photographer.
Yeah, people, go to skillshare.com/RealLifeLore26 and support this channel. Yeah, Kualu City is it called? I still don't know perfect pronunciation, but yeah. Damn, obviously this is one of those, that movies thing, that old Chinese movie, Jackie Chan featuring where, there are certain areas that are controlled by criminals, gang lords or something like that. This feels like one of those places where criminal activity was high, I guess. No cops would ever go there because obviously, first of all, it would be hard to navigate to begin with. And, yeah, this is just effed up. People just build those structure without any architect planning or anything. How are they strong? That's the first thing I'm thinking. How didn't they collapse? How didn't they catch fire? Did you see all those wirings? If the fire started, that's it. Entire place is going after one another. They are so close. And goddamn, this is like, cyberpunk universe in real life, isn't it? People walking there, everything is so close. Multi-layer thing. If you look up, there are people living there. If you look side, people living there. It's just weird, man. People are just going from one side to another from, I guess, at the middle of the floor. They don't even have to go all the way down. That feels more cyberpunk universe type. I don't know why. But yeah. That was what if you lived in the most crowded place on earth. I would rather live on the road than do that. I guess, just, go to countryside and just live there, I guess. Not there. Alright, people. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the reaction. There's a link in the description. Check out the cast, playlist, check out the end cards, and I'll see you next time.